In a previous video, I went through the process of cleaning and tuning up this old Miller's Falls Model 9954 portable bandsaw, which I bought at an auction. I got this to give to my dad, who's been wanting a saw similar to the one I have with its own table. As the saw is over 40 years old, there isn't a commercial option for a table like for my newer Milwaukee saw, so I'm gonna make my dad one. The general plan for this table is to be very much like the swag off-road table I bought for my Milwaukee saw. This table has two miter slots, which I want to incorporate into the design of the table. The table fastens directly to the saw, which won't be an option for the Miller's Falls saw since it doesn't have the same sort of platen. Okay, this is the general idea for the table. It's going to be 16¼ inches from side to side, 9 inches deep, and so that there's enough space under it for the bandsaw to fit and be able to tighten the tensioning knob. It's going to be 11¼ inches tall. It'll have a T-slot on the right and the left-hand side, just like my other one. And then down the middle, I'm going to have to cut a slot that the blade of the bandsaw will slide into when the bandsaw gets added to it. Then the two slots on it, standard miter slot size, 3/8 of an inch thick by 3/4 of an inch wide. I start by laying things out on this piece of 3/16 inch thick plate, which will be used for the tabletop. The first mark I make is for the left-hand miter slot, which is 2 inches in from the side. Next is the location of the slot, which will be cut for the blade. Then, the right-hand miter slot. And finally, the right edge of the table. I bought this plate oversized, so I need to mark the 9-inch depth. Checking the layout against the saw, I can see that the miter slot locations will work. Since I'll be using a metal cutting circular saw and an edge guide, I mark the offset for the shoe of the saw for cutting the lines. The 3/16 inch thick plate is probably too thick for the saw, but going slow, it didn't really have a problem cutting it. I end off by cutting the slot for the bandsaw blade. To stiffen and reinforce the edge of the table, I'll be bolting on some pieces of 1-inch angle iron around the perimeter. At the corners, I miter the angle iron so that they don't overlap. Now time to mark the bolt holes. And then center punching so that the drill bit doesn't wander. I then mark and drill the corresponding holes on the tabletop. To allow the blade of the saw to pass through the edge angle, it will need to be cut at the same place as the slot. For continuity, I'm adding a short piece of bar to span the gap, which I cut from a leftover piece of 3/16 inch plate. Instead of having to fiddle with the nut while trying to get this tightened, I opted instead to tap the holes. Now marking where the edge angle needs to be cut for the slot. Next, I cut the 4 legs of the table. So that the miter gauge has something to ride on, I cut a couple of bars for the bottom of the miter slots. I'm using flathead machine screws to attach the angles to the top, so the holes in the table need to be countersunk. Now for a test fit. This video was getting pretty long as I was editing it, so I'll cut here and finish the rest in part 2. Thanks for following along in this part 1, and I hope I'll see you on the next one. Until then, don't forget to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.